Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is stepping out, stepping outside of ourselves. That's what it's about. And what we'll notice is that in turning the lens from inward to outward, we actually become a greater and more authentic expression of who we are and our capabilities. So that's what we'll be talking about. But before we get started, let's take a minute or two to get present. Good morning, Rosalind. Welcome. So good to have you here with us this morning, and welcome to everybody else who's joining us. We're just going to take a minute or two to get present. So take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells and your organs, and bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells, your molecules, your electrons, creating this brilliant beam of light from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, and fatigue. And now let's press our palms together, rub your palms together. Feel the friction, feel the motion, all the sensation, tickling, tingling, buzzing, and allow that sensation to bring you present right here, right now, into this remarkable physical form that enables you to experience life. Welcome, welcome. So, stepping outside ourselves. So, it's very, very interesting that when we have our lens of awareness focused inward, that's where we're typically engaged in criticism. Good morning, Dido. So great to have you here with us this morning. Welcome, and welcome, John Thaddeus. Welcome. How wonderful to have you join us. So we're talking about stepping out. And so it's really, really interesting. I don't know if you've ever been engaged in a conversation where you're in the conversation, but you're thinking, well, what am I going to say? What am I going to say? Well, how should I react? When you're doing that, you're not really engaged. What happens is that there's a contraction, right? That we experience this shutting down. We experience this sense of stiltedness in our conversation, where we're self-centered, self-censoring is what I meant to say, but we're self-centering. And good morning, Lisa. Welcome. So good to have you here with us this morning. We're talking about stepping out from the self-reflection that is constantly going on for some of us when we're engaged in the world. When this conversation came up with a client around doing interviews, for example, and when you're engaged in an interaction with another person, conversation or whatever, and you're wanting to give a certain impression, you're wanting to look intelligent, you're wanting to say the right thing, you're thinking about, what do I say next? What's the point that I want to get across? You know, when you're stuck in that vantage point with this lens looking inward, you're not connecting with the outer world. And there's an art, and the trick is to get out of the way. When we allow all that self-reflection. Good morning, Gia. Welcome. So good to have you here with us this morning. We're talking about stepping out of that place of constant self-assessment, self-evaluation. Good morning, Sue. So good to have you here with us this morning. We are talking about stepping out from that internal constant assessment evaluation that ends up stifling us and makes us feel way more self-conscious. All that self-consciousness is constraining us, restricting us, stifling us from full authentic expression. When we can get out of the way, when we can turn that lens that was focused inward, when we can turn it outward, to be paying attention to the other person, to be engaging, to be present, then what happens is that internal dialogue gets a rest. We can actually be responsive to the other person because we're not so concerned about what am I going to look like? What are people going to think of what I have to say? And instead to be authentically engaged. And it's ironic that when we get out of the way, when we become less aware or less focused on our own beingness in those circumstances, when we can just interact, that we can be more authentically expressed when we get out of the way. Now, I'm not talking about situations where there may be some danger. We want to be negotiating. In that case, there's a different kind of inward focus that's an important thing, to be presencing ourselves to whatever reactivity we may have, and to be able to monitor that, or to be able to mitigate that in the process of our conversation. That's a different situation. What I'm talking about is really connecting with other people. When we're trying to talk and we're trying to be critical at the same moment, what happens is we become more of whatever it is we're being critical of, right? We tend to become less fluid, less expressive, less present. So in these conversations with you, I'm not, if I ever get stuck in, oh, wow, what did I just say? Or what should I say? Or how do I say it? Instead of just letting things flow, then what happens is that I impede the flow, right? With all that internal dialogue. And then what I'm doing is I'm making the conversation more about me and less about whatever it is that's wanting to flow through. And so this goes back to our frequent conversation of who are we? What if we are life happening through us, using this unique vehicle to express a unique aspect of itself? And so if that's the case, that self-consciousness, I think there's a distinction between self-consciousness and self-awareness. The way that we think of I'm self-conscious, we don't use consciousness in that context as sort of as the most elevated understanding of the word. So it kind of means it has a more stifling kind of connotation. Good morning, Jenny. So glad you're here to join us. We're talking about stepping out, and what I mean is stepping outside of our past, our ideas of ourselves, our preoccupation with how we might look, or how others might interpret, or how others might perceive us, and to be able to be a flowing expression of the essence that we are. So interesting. Jenny says comfort zone. So I'm not sure which aspect you're addressing here, but when we allow ourselves to be comfortable, or when we don't even, when we're not even asking, am I comfortable? Am I uncomfortable? When we're just being, then that is something of a comfort zone that allows us to be more fully expressed. And it's interesting because if we're trying to look smart, like let's say, and this was a conversation with someone else also, being in a group of people that you might admire or have a lot of respect for and consider that they're really bright, and you want to be able to make an intelligent contribution, and you want to be able to say just the right thing at just the right time. Those considerations, that's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure to put on yourself. And those considerations are sort of taking you out of the flow of what's happening, right? And taking you out of the relatedness that enables a free flow and authentic expression. And so when we allow ourselves to expand into the moment, expand into whatever is unfolding in that moment, whether it be a social moment or a moment of even reflection. Okay, so let's say we're journaling. There are times when you're writing or you're journaling, I'm presuming, because I've experienced this, and maybe it's the same for you, where you just write and it's flowing and it's coming out of you, and you're not having to second guess yourself, or you're not struggling for the words. It's just flowing. That's a very different state than the state where you're being self-critical of every word that you might be putting down on the page, and trying to say it right, because there's this metric that you're evaluating. Constant evaluation is something that keeps us separate from ourselves. Self-evaluation, self-judgment. And Gia says, yes, we try so hard at times to fit in, be it social gatherings or friends gatherings or anywhere. We become self-conscious to prove ourselves, so conscious to prove ourselves that we lose ourselves in the bargain. Exactly, exactly, exactly. And we end up being the self that we're trying to avoid being, because we're so conscious and so metered, and we're doing this heavy monitoring. I don't know about you, but I notice that I type pretty well when I'm on my own. I can type pretty fluidly, and I've gained some speed doing that when I'm taking notes, for instance. But if I'm typing something and people are watching, if it's on screen and people are watching, I make so many errors, and I'm not even aware of trying to type better. And I get stifled. I get flustered. That's what it is, flustered somehow. I don't know why, like it's I'll go and correct the mistakes, and now I don't feel the need to apologize for my typing all the time. But it's a function of that critical attention or potentially critical attention. Jenny says to Gia, not quite sure how to talk with you. I'm guessing you want to be reaching out, Jenny. So maybe you guys can back channel that. I'm not sure if that's what you guys are looking to do. So Gia says, I've gone through this self-monitoring, self-critical and whatnot. Hey, Mira, I think each time I hear you, I believe you're talking to me. I want to hear you more. Well, Gia, it's there if you ever want it. It's totally there. And thank you for that. But I think, you know, this self-monitoring and self-judgment and self-criticism is a way that we are evidencing our lack of trust for ourselves. Because I know for me, a good portion of my life, I really didn't trust myself. I didn't trust myself to I just pretty much on every level, I just didn't trust myself. I didn't trust myself to be able to communicate effectively. I didn't trust myself to be responsible, maybe responsible in my communications. You know, I didn't trust that I would be able to respond appropriately, like because my emotions used to kind of run roughshod with me. You know, like I had so much pent up rage for so many years that it was always kind of like trying to keep the lid on and say the right thing, do the right thing, because I would feel powerless to control my emotions and my reactions sometimes because there was all this pent up energy. And Jenny says, me too, as if it's a divine gift. It's meant to be from the universe. So what, Jenny, I don't know if you're responding to me or to Gia. I don't know if you guys are communicating elsewhere. Anyway, we do, when we come to this place of getting out of the way, and what I mean by that is giving the self-judgment a break, you know, giving our self-criticism, that self-monitoring a break. It's freaking exhausting. It's exhausting, and it ends up creating the same kind of circumstance that we're trying to avoid. And oh, okay, Gia says, no, we're not talking to each other. Okay. Jenny says, yes, emotional regulation takes work. Thank you for that. And Jenny says, you and your different topics every day. You know, it's funny, Jenny. Oh, wait, I missed something that Gia said. Okay. Oh, I see what you said, Jenny. It's the gift is meant to be from the universe, the different topics every day. Sorry, got a little jumbled there. So now, see, in the past, with all that self-monitoring and all that self-criticism and self-judgment, I would have turned red. I would have been totally tongue-tied and mortified and embarrassed that I missed something. Whereas, you know what? I get to be human. You get to be human. And we all get to be human. I was talking with a friend about doing interviews, and Gia, I'll get back to your comment in a minute. I'm sorry I missed it. About doing interviews, and rather than being worried about saying the right thing all the time, it's just like, oh, I didn't, you know, I got all tongue tied. You can say that. It's okay. We get to be human beings. You know, living is a process. It's not about perfection. And this notion of perfection is a vitality killer. For real, for real. So Gia says, same, I have self-confidence issues and full of fear. Gia, my primary emotion used to be fear. Fear and anger, both of the two. So it's ironic, isn't it? As we have been holding degrees in education and marriage, having kids, and so many skills that I've worked on, still inside, I have only doubts of myself. So I'm going to say, just based on the communication I've had with you, Gia, that you don't just have doubts of yourself. You have a lot of doubts of yourself or about yourself, but not just. And there are kernels, you know, there's such, Jenny says, we're all perfectly imperfect. Exactly. And the sooner we allow for our own imperfections, that we can allow for the imperfections of others. You know, we can allow human beings to be human beings and be in connection instead of always parrying and dancing around, you know, whether we're going to be attacked or judged or whatever. And when someone judges us, we can address that. It's like, oh wow, are you judging me? Are you judging me? What's going on here? You know, do you have a judgment about that? You know, let's talk about that. What's going on? You know, so as we give ourselves more space to be in the process, it's messy. Life is messy. The process is messy. And as long as we pretend that it isn't, what we're doing is we're stifling our communication, we're stifling our expression, we're stifling our ability to relate. Jenny says rejection is huge for me. Yeah, I get it. I get it. Because when we get rejected, it feels really personal, right? So here's the deal. When someone's rejecting you, or when someone could reject you and you could not feel rejected. Because why? Typically, like if somebody's saying, first of all, we interpret a lot of things as rejection that aren't necessarily rejection. So for example, if somebody says, no, I don't like that idea, we might feel rejected. Why? Because we've identified with that idea. We think that's who I am. So they're saying no to my idea, so they're rejecting me. So what happens is we conflate these ideas together and then feel rejected. So we might have an underlying tone of I'm rejected or I've been abandoned, which is something that I carried for years and years, feelings of abandonment and rejection. And so my filter was always hearing for rejection, always listening for that. You know, so if somebody said, no, I don't want to do that, it would be a rejection of me. And then there were times when people said, no, I don't want to be your friend, like literally said, no, I don't want to be your friend. So that's pretty overt rejection, right? But the thing is that about me or is that about them? Do they really know me? Or even if they do know me, is that about me or is it about what's going on for them? It's probably a combination of the two, but we get to choose the way that we interpret these things when we are consciously alert to our interpretations. The thing is that most often we aren't. You know, we talk a lot here about triggers. And so when we experience a trigger, you know, maybe somebody gives us a look like, oh, you know, and we'll turn that into, oh my gosh, you know, I'm such a terrible person. This person just really dissed me or really rejected me or whatever. And who knows, maybe you just did something that reminded them of somebody in their past who did things that they have all kinds of issues with. They don't know you. They don't know who you are. They just rolled their eyes. That's about them. It's about their interpretation of what's going on. So Gia says, what were you saying about doubts? Please let me know. Oh, about you, Gia, on about doubts. Oh, that you said you still have only doubts about yourself. And the thing that I notice in you, Gia, is you've got tremendous wisdom. You don't have only doubts about yourself. You have great insight into yourself, and not just your negative aspects. You know, you're pretty in tune with a lot of what's going on with you. So you're aware of what's going on. You're not doubting all that stuff. You see a lot of the dynamics that are happening for you. And so Jenny's saying, so believe in yourself, Gia. Yes. Yes. And Jenny also said, yes, abandonment is tough too. It stems from childhood, for me too. So, you know, being included was a really big deal for me for forever, because I had felt abandoned and rejected and exiled, kind of. And there have even been times when that has been triggered again for me. So when it gets triggered, what do? We say, oh, that got triggered. There's an opportunity for me to heal something. That's how we use these situations. Gia said, sorry, I meant I've had doubts earlier. Now I'm much, much better now. Thank you so much. Yes, you are. You are. And you know, it's interesting. I was going through some stuff yesterday, and I found a book that someone gave me with a note card. And in the note card, it said, I'm so sorry to see you being in so much pain. And it was from, well, quite a few years ago. And it reminded me that where I was, and I've told you this, I've told you guys this, that I spent the greater part of my life being like suicidal, ideation, depressed. And this note was a reminder. And what I recognize is that where I was and where I am, there's no linear progression. I even had an opportunity yesterday, caught up with a friend from years ago who knows me from more than 20 years ago, and said, wow, you know, you are such a different person from when we first knew each other. And it's true. And what I can say is that there was no way to get from here to there in a straight line. And we talk about quantum change here, you know, that we put in all this energy on this level with intention and for transformation, and keep putting in that energy and keep putting in that energy. And it seems like nothing's changing, and it seems like it's all staying the same and repeating itself. And then poof, all of a sudden you pop up to the next level and things are different. And you might not even notice that pop. But what happens is that there is transformation and change. And all of you who have gone through these deep transformations, if you were to look back, you can see it's not linear. That transformation, that growth, it's not linear. So know that all that energy that you're putting in, it's working. You may not see it. You may not see it, but it's having an impact. And having that clarity of intention is foundational to it. And so what today's topic is stepping outside of all that self criticism, all that self-monitoring, all that self-flagellation. You know, like part of us has believed, oh, if we beat ourselves up, that it'll keep us in line. That's not how it works. We get to love ourselves into our new state. Beating yourself up to get yourself to change isn't going to create the change that you desire. Loving yourself into that change and through the messiness of the ups and downs, that is where the magic happens. Jenny says, I read yesterday, until you learn the lesson, it will continue to teach you. Yes, it will. I thought, ding, 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 thought about what you talked about the other day. Step out to figure out the lesson in having now to make a change. Yes, 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 yes. Thank you, Jenny. I appreciate that. And the thing that I noticed is that the lessons would first show up as a whisper. And then the lesson would show up in regular kind of tone of voice. And progressively, as I didn't listen to those lessons, it would get louder and louder until finally I got knocked over the head with a hammer to get my attention. And then, you know, like we can mitigate the pain of a lesson the sooner we allow ourselves to receive it. You know, the earlier we allow ourselves to receive a lesson, the less painful that lesson's going to be, the less we resist it and embrace it, the more the more ease we'll have with it. So when something arises, to be able to say, oh wow, I got triggered, what's going on, what can I learn? The sooner you do that, the more pain you're going to save yourself from. Yeah, Jenny says, I think mine is screaming at me. You know what? We all go through the phases where we need to get screamed at in order to hear it. So the questions to start asking, Jenny, is like, what is the wound? What's the underlying wound here? And part of it is to stop resisting life the way it is. Like, it is how it is. It is how it is. You can scream and cry and rail and say it's unfair and why me and this is a tragedy and it, you know, it's devastating and all of that. But the thing is, still what is. And the sooner we're able to be with what is, the better off we're going to be. You know, the whole conversation of it's not fair. Yeah, well, okay, so who said it was supposed to be fair? We believe things should be fair, right? We want to believe that that's how things should be. They should be fair. It's not fair. Why me? I did everything right. And now this came out of nowhere and is ruining my life. And I can't do anything to change it. That's just so awful. It is what it is. And it may be awful and it may be unfair. And it is what it is. So Jenny says, amen. And Gia says, I needed to hear this, Mira. Trust me, I think we have some cosmic relation. We very well may, Gia. We very well may. And Jenny says, yes, it is. Rosalind says, thank you for these insights. And you're so welcome. Jenny says, nope, life's not been fair. And that's okay. Exactly. You know, life it's not about fair. You know that the Rolling Stone lyric, you can't always get what you want, but you get what you need. That's another version of life is happening for me and through me rather than to me, you know, and if we allow the circumstances of life to be in service to our growth, and find those elements of growth and healing that are available to us. It may be painful, but it also tends to be profoundly powerful and transformative. So yes, I agree, Jenny. Great song. So anyway, that's it for today. So much love to you. Thank you all for being here and for being engaged and for chiming in. It makes such a difference. And it makes a difference for everybody else, you know, to be able to have this dialogue that's emerging and shared experience. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection. I go live here on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page and YouTube channel each weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern. And I so invite you to check out all the other wonderful programming on Enlightened World Network and Enlightened World Living and EWN One with the Earth. These are all Facebook pages. So much love to you guys and so much gratitude for your playing with me these mornings. It just is such a richness for me too. So until next time.